My daughter-in-law raised her voice across the table. Get a job and stop being a leech. I felt the sting, but years of paying bills and holding this family together taught me to breathe, not break. So I turned my water glass and without a word, slid my attorney's card beneath it. Proof that I deal in facts, not scenes. That was only the first crack. What followed would test every polite smile in that room and show who we all were when the lights got cold and honest. Before I continue the story, please subscribe to the channel and leave a comment letting me know where you're watching from. Plano, Texas wears its Friday evenings like a press shirt, porch lights on timers, and silence that sounds like approval. At 7:15, I stepped into my son's open-plan living room where a citrus candle said we thought of this. Eucalyptus in a slim vase matched the granite island. In my family, dignity is whatever fits the picture frame. I smoothed my navy dress and lifted my chin the way habit teaches widows to. Darlie glided toward me, perfect as a catalog. So glad you could make it, she sang. By the island, our neighbor Linda balanced a casserole and a patient smile. Two of Travis's co-workers hovered near the patio doors. At the back, a pair of HOA stalwart silver hair lemon expressions measured crown molding with their eyes. "Hi, Mom," Travis said, giving me the careful half-hug of a man who fears affection might wrinkle. He looked good the way stress looks good on young men. Crisp shirt, restless eyes. Darlie touched his sleeve as if dimming a lamp. "Let's keep things presentable," she said loud enough for our audience. Linda's wink passed between us like a Band-Aid. "So nice you could help out," one HOA neighbor added, breezy as an insult. I smiled and let it pass. Some comments you answer, others you file. The table held identical porcelain, for everyone white plates, straight flatware glasses polished to clarity. At the far end, one setting broke the pattern. Cloudy glass, a fork with a bent tine, an older china plate traced by a hairline crack. A tinted place card rested at the edge, small as a dare. I read it once, then again, because the brain can be merciful before it is honest. E. Staff. Ambiguous kindness, I thought. Elder Eileen employee. The room managed not to see me see it. Darlie adjusted the centerpiece. Travis tugged his cuff. One coworker asked about parking. The HOA pair arranged their faces into neutral. I sat. The chair had been dragged a quarter inch from the table the way you make room for the person who pours coffee. I lifted the card, felt its cheap stock, and turned it face down. Paper cuts draw real blood when they're witnessed. The little tent slid into my purse. Evidence. Not to confront yet, but to keep time with. "Do you help out around here?" a coworker asked, gentle as an error. "I used to run a kitchen that fed 20 at Thanksgiving," I said. "Now I specialize in knowing when not to stir the pot." He laughed, relieved, and told me about a deadline. I asked about his mother. From the island, Linda lifted her phone. "Let me grab a quick family dinner shot," she called. The flash popped and fell, catching the table arc, the eucalyptus stem Travis's profile, Darlie's manicure, and the little edge of the card I was already palming. Maybe it caught more. Maybe it caught everything they preferred to blur. I didn't check. Mom Travis murmured near my shoulder. "You okay?" He meant, "Are you going to make a scene?" I took my water with both hands to quiet the ache old bones call weather. "I'm fine, sweetheart." Fine, the elastic word we hand to people who haven't earned the real one. Dinner was lasagna, and a salad that tasted like a decision. Compliments orbited the room. Darlie reminded me twice about the serving spoon rotation salad entree bread from left to right. The rules always matter most to those who need them to. I watched Travis perform his favorite magic trick. When conflict enters, he edits himself out of the shot. He laughed a shade louder, asked questions. With 3 exits, refilled a glass that wasn't empty. Darlie executed hospitality like choreography and used the word "we," the way some people use offense. Being misnamed by your own family isn't payable in a night. It accrues with witnesses, candles, and the shuffle of chairs. I kept my face soft and my back straight. I thought of Harold gone 5 winters now who fixed wobbly legs with wood glue and patience. He would have said, "Vel, you don't have to sit there." He isn't here. I am. Linda slid into the seat beside me. You look beautiful, she whispered, which is another way of saying I see you. She checked her photo, frowned, then smiled. She didn't show me. My phone buzzed against the table screen down. A fresh post from Darlie flashed before it dimmed. Care for elders, not their money. I let it go dark. Across from me, the HOA pair compared bylaws. Travis finally sat, took my bent fork and swapped it with his without meeting my eyes. The gesture was small and late and entirely him. Thanks, I said, and he nodded. Darlie topped off my water. Sparkling would be too much, she smiled. Tap feels homier. I have a rule book I built the year I turned 65. Rule 1. I don't lecture adults who already know they're being unkind. Rule 2. I don't deliver consequences when a clock can. Rule 3. I keep receipts of purchases of words of place cards that tell the truth louder than my voice ever could. We ate. We performed. Someone joked about the cowboys. Someone else about property taxes. The eucalyptus shed a single silver leaf on the runner and lay like an apostrophe, something unsaid that still alters the sentence. I sipped water and listened to my own steady breath. I folded my napkin, once notation not surrender. The evening didn't tilt. It simply continued. I thought about the photo in Linda's phone, the card in my purse, the way Travis's jaw tightened when Darlie said we. A life is a ledger. At my age, you reconcile more than you spend. At 7:58, a far train stitched the silence with 2 notes. The co-workers said their goodnights. The HOA pair praised edging so straight it could pass inspection at midnight. I stood when everyone stood and thanked the room for a meal that will soon appear online with a caption about gratitude. I slipped the little tent card into my purse and smiled at the room like a guest who knew exactly when to pay the check. The flash pops like a tiny summer storm. For a beat, the room pauses white on porcelain, a ripple in the glass. Linda lowers her phone and smiles the smile of a neighbor pleased with her picture. I let my eyes drift over the screen as if admiring the centerpiece. The table sits in the frame, matched plates crystal in a line, and at the far end my place-clouded glass, bent tine a tent card crisp and readable. I don't touch it. Since Harold died, I've learned to notice everything and disturb nothing. The napkin smooths over my lap. My posture stays soft. If Darlie glances over, she'll see a grateful mother admiring rosemary and candlelight, not a witness. A co-worker leans toward me, cheeks pink from the Chardonnay. Do you help with events? Everything looks so presentable. The word pricks. I let it pass through a smile. You must live in deadlines, I say, offering a safer topic. What do you do when 3 campaigns land on a Friday? She laughs, then mentions approvals, and a client who loves the word elevated. When she asks what I do, I keep the ball in the air. I raised a son who hates being late, I say. In Dallas traffic, that's full time. Across the island, Darlie floats lacquered smile, hand on the pitcher, like kindness has a handle. Her phone pings. She taps and hands off a plate. We care for our elders, not their money, she says with the confidence of a slogan. Heads nod. My phone lights with her post. I don't open it. Not every hook is worth a bite. Travis hovers between chairs, more coat than person. He fills water, avoids eyes, stays useful. He doesn't correct the co-worker or see the tent card. I catalog his silence and set it beside the fork. Great shot, Linda says, showing her screen. The picture is plain and undeniable. The card reads in the near field. My mismatched setting sits inside everyone else's matching pride. I step close enough to be polite, not enough to crowd. Faces pearl studs, left coral nails right. Objects carafe salt, cellar brass lamp reflection. Distance 2 steps from my chair to the island. I keep track because that is how you stay seen when someone tries to blur you. Send it to me, I ask, light as lemonade. I'll pass it to Travis for his album. Of course, she says. Her thumb flicks. A small whoosh. Darlie taps her spoon. A quick toast. The room funnels attention. To family supporting one another, she says. To doing the right thing, even when it's not easy. Silver rings. We sip. The HOA couple murmurs about property values. The coworker gives me a look too gentle to be casual. Travis studies his fork like a man reading bad news. The air cools. Under the talk, something with teeth coils. My tote rests by my foot. The tent card rides where I slid it end first. Paper shouldn't weigh anything but proof does. It hums like a phone on vibrate. You know it's there and when to look. I keep my rule. I don't interrupt storms. I mark the wind. I thank the table, compliment the rosemary, ask the HOA man about his roses. He blooms on cue. Darlie beams. Travis refills my water and doesn't meet my eyes. My phone shivers. Linda has sent the picture. I let it sit and imagine the file like a seed, small alive patient. Later, it will be a tree with a ring for this night. Conversation drifts to a school fundraiser and whether the dry cleaner on Independence changed owners. Linda tells a stray dog story. We make the right faces. Through it all, the picture waits fixed and honest. Darlie brushes an invisible crumb and angles her profile. She is building an evening to be scrolled. Warm light, a devoted son, a dignified mother-in-law. She doesn't notice that the version in my purse is stronger than the one on her page. That's the trouble with stories. You can write them, but you still have to sit with the truth. Travis finally chooses a chair. He nods too fast through a question and wears the look he had before spelling tests. I want to press his wrist like I used to steady. I'm here, but my hands stay folded. Aging in place, the HOA lady chirps blueprint eyes on me. Best when families plan early. We did, I say, a long time ago. I don't list the house deeded before the wedding or the policies filed when baseball cards lived in shoeboxes. There's a difference between declaring and demonstrating. Tonight is for the latter. A dog barks and is shushed. I touch my tote and feel the ridge of the folded card. I don't pray or count. I wait because waiting is an action when it's a choice. Across the table, Darlie's phone flashes. She lays it face up her feed, glowing with my son's life as backdrop for her lesson. Care for elders, not their money. The line sits like a sermon title. The congregation nods. I let my eyes travel and land on Travis. He finally looks back 5 years old for a breath chocolate on his shirt, worry in his eyes, then the moment seals. Mom, do you need anything? He means, are you going to make this hard? No, I say. I have everything I need. He hears what he wants. The coil tightens. I save the photo in large with 2 fingers. Tent card sharp and centered. Place setting wrong like a single note ruining a hymn. Timestamp neat in the corner. I reduce it and slip the phone away. People think defense is loud. It isn't. Defense is picking the breath that will be remembered. Defense is a mother deciding her name is not a suggestion. Plates clear. Darlie lifts her chin and smiles toward the far end as if a stage light found her. The room leans in. I hear the hinge of the night warming under its paint. Whatever comes next won't be an accident. I set my napkin crisp-centered like a bookmark before a trial. The room kept smiling, but I could hear the hinge of the night getting ready to swing. The chatter thins the way air thins before a storm. Forks hover, not quite landing. A lemon curl on the platter unfurls by half as if listening. I fold my napkin once more along its crease and set both hands beside it, palms easy breath, measured. If the night is a door, the hinge has started to move. I won't grab it. I'll mark the swing. Darlie taps her glass with a spoon bright as a bellhop's button. Before dessert, she says voice turned up to reach the far wall, a little family business. She glances down the table toward me with the kind of smile people frame to remember themselves by. She takes a breath that thinks it's generous. Velma. She says we've tried to be patient. Then she doesn't use patient words. She uses a word meant to stick. You can't keep being a leech. The syllable hits the china and doesn't break. No one rushes to pick it up. The HOA husband coughs into his napkin and stops. A coworker looks at her thumbnail like it has a map on it. Travis goes statue still in that way he learned when he broke the vase at 10 and believed silence could rewind time. Darlie keeps going as if she didn't hear herself. There's dignity in work. Walmart always needs greeters. It'd be good for you. for your self-respect. She graces the room with a laugh that expects survivors to clap. One of the neighbors lets a smile escape before it hides. My pulse ticks once, and then behaves. I do not stand, do not recite a resume, do not pull from the library of mornings. I opened with Harold, when the sun was only idea and the payroll had to clear. I let her sentence hang where the air can weigh it. Truth has no hurry, neither does insult. They both settle, and everyone learns which one they touched. The room tries to restart, chairs scuffing in place, silver chiming like embarrassed wind chimes. I make one slow sweep along the faces and find my glass. The surface beads with condensation, faithful as breath. I move my plate an inch to the right to give myself a little stage no one can object to. My inner law is older than this table. If they sign the insult in public, I will notarize the moment. I lift the glass by the rim and leave a perfect wet circle on the wood. The mark darkens, clears. Darkens, again, an eye-opening. Space, ready for what matters. Out of my tote, I slide a plain white rectangle. It isn't a threat, it's a doorbell. Marcia's name sits there in a typeface that doesn't waste time. I lay the business card within the water ring and set the glass back down over it so her number blooms under the halo. Ink water light witnesses who don't talk too much. Travis's eyes flick to the circle, then up. I lean enough that only he can hear. Tomorrow, I say voice warm because I refuse to let anyone else change its temperature. 9. His throat moves. He nods. It's small and true. Velma? What is that supposed to be? Darlie says, laugh tilted playing to her gallery. This is dramatic. She swings her gaze toward her audience, looking for the chuckle that lets her keep the stage. I meet her eyes the way you look at a mirror when you've already decided not to buy the suit. I hold, and I do not blink. The ring of water slowly eats the corners of the card. There has never been anything dramatic about a calendar appointment. The spell breaks the wrong way for her. One coworker murmurs, "We should probably head out big morning," and offers grateful smiles like life rafts. The HOA couple stands together with the choreography of people trained to exit without being part of the story. Linda lowers her phone to her lap and watches me, the way a nurse watches an EKG, curious, first then patient, then finally understanding what the little spikes mean. Travis reaches for his water. His hand trembles once then tells itself to behave. He takes a breath that finds his ribs. He is not a child, and I am not a problem to solve. I'm sure Velma didn't mean to make anyone uncomfortable. Darlie says brightly, as if discomfort is a dessert she forgot to plan for. We were just having an honest conversation about next steps. I heard every word I say even. So did the room. Silence tries on a few sizes and settles into one that fits. The refrigerator hums. The eucalyptus leans. The word she chose keeps sitting where she placed it, not getting softer. I push my chair back without scraping. Disrespect is loud enough without my help. I set my fork parallel to my knife and square the plate the way Harold used to square Ledger's order amid noise. I stand. "Thank you for dinner," I say steady as a road sign. This was instructive. I lift my tote. My fingertips find the little tent card I pocketed earlier, E-staff still sharp at the fold. I do not wave it. I don't have to. I glance down the table to make sure the glass still holds the lawyer's card in its clear ring. It does like a lighthouse inside its own weather. Velma Darlie says, voice reaching for a register it can't hold, you're overreacting. I tilt my head. No, I answer. I'm writing it down. Linda's eyebrows rise a notch. She understands more now about the picture she took. The coworker in coral nails bites the inside of her cheek and studies the far wall, the international sign for somebody else's lesson. The neighbor lady touches her pearls, which do their best to absolve her. At the doorway, shoes paired and waiting like polite soldiers, I turn to my son. Everyone else vanishes out of the corner of my eye. 9. I say again, not a question and not a mercy. He nods once. It's the first time all night his face looks like the boy who used to check the mailbox by himself and come back beaming that the world had not forgotten we lived here. Outside, the air has cooled. A sprinkler clicks somewhere counting blossoms. I step into the night with my toad on my shoulder and my name intact. Behind me, the room rearranges itself around a ring of water and a rectangle of paper, holding steady under glass. Whoever needs the number will have it. Whoever needs the lesson already does. I left the lawyer's card blooming under a ring of water and took my dignity home with me. Legacy West wakes up like a well-made bed, tight corners sun, folded across glass, everything pretending not to wrinkle. I got there early and asked the barista for the roast Travis has favored since his first real job, the one that taught him to wear a collared shirt even when no one was looking. I set a small bouquet of wildflowers between our cups, nothing expensive stems, clipped short color without the noise. Kindness to me is ballast. It keeps a conversation from tipping even when the waves show up uninvited. He arrived with the kind of face a mother knows not broken, just tired in the bones. We breathed together before we spoke. The cafe hummed around us, sneakers on concrete, a stroller wheel bumping the threshold, a server wiping a clean table anyway. I asked him if he'd slept, if he'd eaten, if he needed a moment. He nodded at the first two and blinked at the third. I told him we could sit in silence if that felt better. Sometimes silence is a splint. He wrapped his hands around his cup like it was winter. Last night felt wrong, he said finally. He didn't say which part, and I didn't make him. Naming every shard can turn a cut into a hobby. I told him I wasn't there to relive the scene, and I wasn't there to grade him. I was there because I was his mother before there were smartphones and place cards, and I will be his mother after. That seemed to give him a place to set his shoulders. I slid the manila envelope across the table. It wasn't heavy, but it had gravity. These are not weapons, I said. They're anchors. On top, a printed escrow email confirming the house as a wedding gift with the property manager's name that never made it into dinner conversation. Beneath that, a simple timeline, dates of payments, a note about the furniture set Darley had praised when it arrived, a brief list of bank summaries without dollar totals. Enough to be clear, not enough to invite theater. He didn't flip through fast, he read like an adult who works with other adults. Halfway down the stack, he stopped. You kept living small, he said so. The truth would have room to show itself. It wasn't a question, but I answered anyway. Yes? He traced a line on the paper with one finger, then looked at the wildflowers. Why me? He asked, and I heard the weight inside the words. What did I do to deserve the steady part? Because you're still my son, I said, and that's not something an evening can edit. We agreed on a boundary. No responding to posts, no statements to the audience Darley prefers, no public autopsy for strangers who are only there for refreshments. We would document and act. We would not perform. He stared at the bouquet again and smiled, the ghost of a boy who used to bring me dandelions like treasure. We talked about practical things, the Monday calendar at his office, what time he could step out if he needed to, the difference between a conversation and a confrontation. I told him I would speak with my attorney later today, and he didn't flinch at the word. When he stood to leave, we walked out together. The morning had warmed up enough to loosen shoulders on the sidewalk. At the curb, his phone buzzed. He didn't look down. He let it finish buzzing and tucked it deeper into his pocket, then exhaled like a decision had landed. Restraint makes less noise than bravery, but it lasts longer. I'll review these tonight, he said, holding up the envelope. Call me if you need me before that. The sentence was small and grown. I drove home the long way through neighborhoods where the oaks bend like men taking off their hats. I put the wildflowers in water on my kitchen counter and set the extra copies of the papers in my file drawer. The house was quiet in a respectful way, the kind of quiet that doesn't watch the door. I made tea and let the steam loosen the corners of last night in my mind. By mid-afternoon, the phone shattered the quiet with a specific kind of vibration, urgent, but not panicked. Travis. His voice had a steadiness threaded through it like wire. HR reached out, he said. Wellness check Monday morning. Family-related concerns is the language. Darley's narrative travels at the speed of Wi-Fi. Truth takes the sidewalk. Okay, I said, and the word did what it was supposed to. We worked out a reply together, factual, neutral, not a defense, not a confession. He would say he was taking personal time to focus on family matters and would keep his manager in the loop. He would not forward screenshots, he would not speculate, and he would not name names. A meeting is not a verdict, I told him. It's a room with chairs. While we spoke, my own phone stacked up notifications, Darlie's stories, each with a caption that probably read like wisdom crocheted onto a throw pillow. I didn't open them. I've learned to treat bait like I treat dessert appreciated, declined when it ruins dinner. After we hung up, I took out a notepad and wrote in small, neat letters, photo Linda, Cardi, staff, lawyer card under glass, cafe plan executed. I underlined each item once slowly, as if pressing a seal. The afternoon stretched thin and golden. The bouquet opened one petal at a time, showing color that had been there all along. I cleaned the counter because order is energy I can control. A neighbor walked her dog past my window. The dog looked delighted by the same patch of grass it always loves. On the stove, a pot of soup kept itself honest. When a text from Travis arrived, draft sent to HR. Calm. I let my shoulders drop another inch. I thought about the years no one saw when we did the unsophisticated work of becoming a family lost homework, found under a seat, the duct tape on a soccer shin guard, a midnight fever broken by cool cloths, and a song. None of those moments fit on a story post. They don't impress neighbors at a table, but they make a ledger that matters. Maybe you can't show the whole ledger at once. Maybe you just present one clean line at a time. Evening settled with the exact shade of a promise kept. I typed an email to my attorney with the subject line we'd agreed on, short update, no urgency, and included the details from the cafe and the HR note, nothing more. Facts age well, opinions rot. I copied the file names for the documents I might need next week and closed the folder gently like putting a child to bed. Before I turned off the kitchen light, I looked at the wildflowers again. They weren't fancy, and they didn't need to be. On field trips when he was 5, Travis used to pick them with both hands like he was saving a meadow. I remember telling him, then we don't have to own something to be kind to it. It took me longer than it should have to apply that lesson to myself. I didn't check Darlie's posts. I didn't call anyone to interpret the day. I wrote 2 sentences on the notepad under my list, we will not explain kindness to people who are allergic to it. Tomorrow, we gather the photo. The house hummed and clicked in its ordinary ways. I washed 2 cups, dried them, lined them rim to rim in the cabinet. The ordinary, done well, is its own shelter. When the sun went down, the bouquet on my counter was still opening. So was the day that would test whether my son could stand up without leaning on anyone. I set my alarm for early, because good work likes a head start, and folded the dish towel with the same care I had offered the night before to a room full of people who didn't notice. I notice. That is enough to begin again. My phone lit the kitchen alert sliding and stacking. Darlie's newest post wore a halo of hearts and a looping piano. Care for elders, not their money. The HOA names appeared first, then the neighborhood women who trade recipes and rumors with equal speed. I set the phone face down and opened my notebook. Date, time, who shared, who commented, who offered prayer hands, and who wrote carefully boundaries. When the kettle clicked off, I poured tea and lifted the phone again. The post had gathered a tidy storm. I tapped the clip. It began with my laugh, cropped short, looped, captioned like an admission. The audio was sweetened, the room warmer than it had been. My place setting drifted at the edge, older china cloudy glass, a bent fork tine. I slowed the playback and let the sound fall silent. Reflections in the window showed the table from another angle. The card peeked from the blur. I texted Travis, do not engage. Monday policy language only. A bubble appeared and disappeared, then nothing. Good. Silence has its own spine. I opened my laptop and drafted what needed more weight than a comment, a preservation request to my attorney, Marcia. Please hold the original file of Darlie's video, including timestamp, device identifier, upload IP, and the edit history. Also, any stories attached. I attached an index of exhibits, the place card labeled E-Staff in my possession. Linda's photo from last night, a sketch of where I sat and where the glass caught the overhead light. I saved, printed, and slid the letter behind our old mortgage file. Her acknowledgement arrived within minutes, brief, professional, steadying. I watched dust gather along the breezeway, then crossed to Linda's porch. She kept a citronella candle and 2 lawn chairs angled toward the parking lot as if we were fishing for traffic. I didn't mean to stir anything, she said, unlocking her phone. You just looked nice with the flowers behind you. You didn't stir. You witnessed, I said. She opened the original photo, full resolution. The metadata unfolded timestamp location phone, make lens. The image caught what the clip tried to blur: the tent card, the mismatch setting, Darlie's hand suspended mid-hostess. Beside it, a screenshot of her story 1 frame early before captions. The little card sat clear as truth. Keep them unedited. Keep them dated, I said. She emailed both and promised not to crop or filter. Back home, the apartment wore the Saturday quiet I've loved since the factory years, washers humming down the hall, a lawn crew far off, a child on a scooter negotiating a curb. I opened the clip again and watched comments multiply like dandelions. A co-worker of Travis reposted with a sigh about boundaries. One of the HOA pair added a line about difficult seasons. I made a list of names. Witnesses often mistake themselves for spectators until someone asks what they saw. The phone rang. Mom Travis said, voice tight, HR emailed Monday morning. Wellness check. A meeting isn't a verdict, I said. Ask for the agenda. Use policy words. Out of an abundance of caution, I'm taking PTO to address family matters. No impact to deliverables. Happy to discuss accommodations if needed. Keep it boring. I can do boring. Good. Let the policy carry the weight it's supposed to. He exhaled. I keep replaying last night. I don't, I said. I replay frames, not feelings. Frames are easier to prove. He gave a small, humorless laugh. You always did like your files. They've saved more than speeches, I said. After we hung up, I pulled a thin stack from my drawer, our gift letter for the house, the escrow confirmation, and a timeline I'd typed at the cafe while the wildflowers leaned in a jar. I added a header, read, don't react. 2 copies labeled with our initials. Marcia's follow-up pinged. Preservation letters were out to the platform and to Darlie's address on file from an old HOA newsletter sign-up. If the video vanished now, it would not vanish from the right places. I forwarded Linda's files with thanks and asked Marcia to note the unaltered originals. The tent card in my tote felt heavier when I checked for it, as if paper could carry the weight of a wrong name. I ate half a sandwich at the sink. The window glass held a fall coolness I associate with school nights. I thought of Travis at 5 swinging his legs from a cafeteria bench, wildflowers mashed in his fist because he had run too hard to deliver them before recess ended. Love is clumsy when it's young. It gets quieter when it grows less shiny, more stubborn. Another repost arrived from the second co-worker. I didn't flinch. I archived the link with the time saved to capture of the caption and closed the apps. The echo chamber isn't a courtroom, and I don't argue with microphones. I assembled the evidence pack at the table, a simple cover page, a list of exhibits, the printed preservation email, Linda's photo and screenshot, a short affidavit draft stating what I saw and where I sat with a blank for the notary block. I didn't sign. Signatures are for when the house is quiet and the mind is calmer than the pulse. I slid everything into a manila folder and wrote the date on the tab. The sound of the felt tip marker steadied me. A text from Travis requested PTO, HR acknowledged. See you tomorrow, I replied with a thumbs up. Then what mattered? Proud of how you're handling this. 3 dots. Trying, he wrote. Trying is what adult men say when they're learning to stand without leaning on anyone. It's also what boys say as they tie their shoes. Both are true enough. I glanced once more at the clip. It had plateaued. Attention wanders to fresher flames. The files, however, had settled in line and labeled each with a place and a purpose. By the time the sun dropped behind the apartments, the lies were loud, but the files were louder. Evening made their dining room look cleaner than last night, as if light could bleach what was said there. I asked for 15 minutes. No summit, no trial. Travis sat at the near end, eyes clear but tired. Darlie stayed standing with her phone held like a prop. I set a slim folder on the table, the manila edges square with the grain. The house hummed softly, the same refrigerator, the same diffuser, the same candle that tried to smell like money. I kept my hands still. Ground rules, I said, laying my palms flat so the room could feel the temperature. No shouting. No narrating to third parties while we're in the room. No turning this into content. Travis nodded. Darlie's smile went thin, but she stayed. The clock over the pantry clicked. We can disagree, I added, but we won't perform it. I opened the folder. The first page carried a blue ink seal, the kind that leaves teeth in the paper. I slid it toward Travis. A gift letter, I said, calm as a teller, counting out 20s. Notarized, filed with the escrow email that follows. Highlighted lines held still under the light, our names. The date 7 years ago, the phrase gift with no expectation of repayment. My initials as donor countersigned by the escrow officer. Beside it sat a printed confirmation of closing, stapled in the top left. Darlie rocked her weight to one hip, scrolling with her thumb. Ancient, she said. We've carried the mortgage anyway. I tapped a second page. Property taxes, I said. Paid in even quarters by the management company. I didn't list every transfer I could list. Tonight wasn't to drown anyone in dates. It was to set the shoreline. Travis read without theatrics. His hand flattened the corner, respectful as a boy smoothing a map. This house was our wedding gift to you, I said. One sentence, nothing more. Darlie laughed a little into her screen. That's sweet, she said, but we make grown-up decisions now. She pulled up a home decor app, a shopping cart already loaded with a pale sectional and a glass coffee table. Let me show you how I contribute, she added, turning the phone toward me like a verdict. Before you do, I said, hear my line. I kept my voice ordinary. No more buys for the house until we straighten facts. I won't police your style. I will protect the roof. She pressed anyway. The screen thought for a breath, then chirped. Payment declined. She blinked, swiped, tried again with slower confidence. Payment declined, repeated brighter in the silence. Travis exhaled through his nose. It wasn't joy. It was relief the room could finally hear itself. I didn't explain what I'd already begun with my bank because the point wasn't to humiliate anyone. The point was to end the expensive performances. No more purchases, I said, same tone I used when Travis was 5 and wanted another souvenir on the way out of the aquarium, not until the numbers matched the truth. Darlie's face settled into a pretty mask. Her phone lowered a fraction, then rose again like a shield. Travis looked from the letter to me. So what do we do? He asked, voice low. I nodded at the stack. We put the deed on the table tomorrow, I said. We separate what's real from what's decorative. We stop letting spectators decide what our family is. He thumbed the embossed seal again, as if expecting it to warm. Okay, he said, not a surrender a step. Darlie tried for another angle. If you wanted control, she said, you could have just asked instead of theatrics. I let the word cool. Gifts aren't control, I said. They're responsibility, and responsibility means boundaries. She paced in small circles. My followers, she started. I lifted a hand not to silence her, only to mark the edge. Please don't bring an audience into a room that still has dinner plates on it. I gathered the papers into order, staple heads, looking one direction. 2 sentences, I said, because long speeches make people reach for their phones. This home is a gift, not a stage. We'll sort the rest in order. The refrigerator motor sank to a softer hum. Outside, a sprinkler ticked on the neighbor's lawn. I pushed my chair back without scraping. I placed my fork parallel to the knife from last night, a private ritual of tidiness when rooms go untidy. Thank you for your time, I said. Gratitude isn't surrender. It's a way to leave a room without taking the worst of it with you. I slid the folder into my tote. The little tent card that misnamed me rested where I'd tucked it, stiff as resolve. Travis walked me to the porch. The air smelled of concrete and cut grass. porch lights clicked on up and down the block, obedient to timers. "Tomorrow," I said. "9. We put the deed on the table and stopped pretending. He nodded once. From inside a drawer slid shut a little too hard, then quieted. At the steps, I turned back. "I won't argue online," I said. "I won't argue here. Paper then action." He smiled without showing teeth the way he did at 10 when he understood a rule he didn't like, but respected. "Paper then action," he repeated. The words looked good on him. I drove home with the calm that follows choosing a road. The bouquet from this morning waited on my counter, wildflowers opening now that the heat had eased. Some things you teach your children circle back years later and teach you. Tonight the lesson was simple. If someone writes you out loud, answer in writing. Tomorrow I would change the light in that room and lay the deed where the insults had been served. The papers would not raise their voices. They would not need to. They would sit there under cold white bulbs and make the shape of truth visible to anyone willing to look. I arrived at 7 sharp and went straight to the dimmer. Warm amber slipped off the walls. A cold white wash settled over the glass table until it looked like a clean plate beneath a surgical lamp. The room's pretty comforts pillows, fluffed eucalyptus. In a vase, the citrus candle Darlie loved fell flat under the brighter light. I wasn't here for ambiance. I was here for readability. Travis stood by the island, hands in his pockets, shoulders up around his ears. Darlie lingered in the doorway with her phone and a thin smile that tried to pass for calm. I laid my tote on a chair, opened the zipper, and drew out a clear sleeve with paper inside. The chandelier cut its facets across the plastic as I centered it on the glass. Before anybody starts narrating, I said, "We'll let the page speak." No one moved. The refrigerator hummed. Somewhere outside, a child shouted and then laughed a sound from a different kind of Sunday. I turned the sleeve so the header faced them. County seal, recording information, legal description that ran on like a creek boundary all the way down to lot and block. A simple sentence in the middle had the only weight I needed, the grantor's name mine, the grantee's mine. The stamp that proved this wasn't new and wasn't a trick. I rested 2 fingertips near the recording date. This home, I said level, is titled to me. It was my wedding gift to your marriage, paid for and maintained, but the title remained with me. You have been my guests. Travis exhaled once, quiet and long, as though a tight band had been cut from his chest. He leaned closer, reading the line again, lips moving without sound. Darlie let out a small laugh that had no humor in it. "Paper theater," she said. "You're staging a gotcha because you don't like me." I kept my eyes on the seal instead of her face. "Paper is where grown-ups keep their promises," I said. I lifted the sleeve's corner and pointed to the barcode, the instrument number, the clerk's initials. "This isn't gotcha, it's government." She rolled her eyes and started scrolling. The light reflected off her screen made her look even paler. "So what? We've carried the mortgage. We've paid no," I said softly, and tapped a second sheet from the sleeve tax history entries showing payments from the management company I used, years of them boring and steady and real. "You've decorated. You've hosted. Those are choices." The obligation sat with me. Travis's thumbs pressed flat on the sleeve's edge until the plastic creased. He didn't look at me, but I saw his jaw unclench in the glass reflection. He'd spent years apologizing for the tension in this room without knowing its name. Now it had one stamped in blue. A picture from another building slid through me, a fluorescent-lit bank office weeks ago, the notary with a tidy bun, my signature steady as I verified title payments, the absence of liens. I said little there, the same as here. I didn't prepare because I planned a fight. I prepared because patterns repeat, and I was done improvising through other people's tempers. Darlie laughed again louder. "You think a couple of pages give you the right to rights don't require volume," I said, and took out my phone. The timer screen reflected tiny in the sleeve like a white coin. I set it to 30 minutes and placed it beside the deed. The numbers glowed under the chandelier. "You have 30 minutes to pack an overnight bag," I said to Darlie, calm as if I were giving a recipe. "ID medications, 1 change of clothes, a toothbrush. After that, if you are still here, we'll call the police for trespass. This is not punishment. This is boundary. You will receive a written list and a scheduled time to collect the rest of your belongings." Color rose and fell in her face, high and blotchy. "You can't do this to me," she said. "Travis." He didn't look up. "This is between you and the deed," he said, voice low but clear. He slid the sleeve an inch closer to himself and began reading the legal description again, as if the repetition might stitch up something inside him. Darlie's mouth closed. The timer ticked every second, a soft tap. Drawers opened down the hall, a quick slam, and then another. A hanger clinked on a closet rod. Somewhere a zipper caught and zipped. The house under the cold light sounded like a suitcase thinking. I walked to the pantry, took a neutral canvas tote, and set it on the end of the table. "This is yours to keep," I said. "Please use it for anything private that's small." My voice stayed even, my hands in plain sight. No triumph, no taunts. I wasn't writing a headline. I was keeping order. She came back through with a carry-on and a flare of perfume that belonged to a different kind of night. "You're humiliating me," she said. "You did that work yourself," I said, "when you made last night public. This is private. It's us, a table, and a clock." Her eyes went to the timer and then to the deed. She took a step toward Travis. "Say something." He did not reach for her hand. He did not look at me for rescue either. He looked at the sleeve. "We're going to follow what's recorded," he said. "We should have done that from the beginning." She swallowed and wheeled her bag toward the door, breathing fast. "I'll be back tomorrow with a truck," she said. "With friends." "You'll be back with yourself," I said at the time printed on the notice I'll hand you at the door. "If you bring anyone else, they will wait outside until I'm finished, or the police finish for me." The timer counted down in the corner of my eye. 23 seconds. 19. 15. I stood in the cold white wash and watched the numbers pass without hurry. The quiet turned solid enough to lean on. When the last beep sounded, she was at the threshold. The suitcase's wheels braced on the little ridge of trim. I had the notice-ready guest status summary recording reference, a contact number for questions. I held it out, not like a weapon, like a receipt. She took it with a shaky hand. For 1 second, her gaze flicked to the glass table where the deed lay under light. In that second, I saw calculation, and then something I had never seen in her face, the briefest flicker of respect for a thing she couldn't edit. "Good night," I said. The door closed on a gust of air as the latch caught. The house exhaled with me. Travis stayed where he was, palms flat on the table, head bowed, shoulders square. He didn't apologize for her or for himself. He didn't have to. We had finally used our words where they count. I picked up the timer and the sleeve slid the pages back into the tote and switched off the cold white. The room softened, not to invite warmth too quickly, but to recognize the job completed. We would still have Monday and the HR hour, the neighbors' chatter, the long habit of meanness trying to paint itself as concern. But we had something solid now, something that fit in a sleeve and did not blink. On the porch, the evening had that after-rain smell, even though the sky was dry. I rested my hand on the rail. "Tomorrow we continue in order," I said. "No speeches, no crowd." Travis nodded once. It wasn't big. It was enough. When the latch clicked behind her, the house finally sounded like itself, quiet enough to hear what needed doing next. 10 minutes after Darlie's suitcase wheels faded down the driveway, a firm knock echoed through the cold white light of the dining room. Travis looked up from the glass table where the deed still rested beneath its clear sleeve. We didn't need to guess rumor travels faster than headlights in a cul-de-sac. I dimmed the lights a single notch enough to soften the glare without hiding a thing. Plano PD welfare check. 2 officers stood framed in the doorway, Cap's low voices polite but practiced. "Ma'am, we received a call concerned about elder safety. Their presence was all procedure, no urgency, no aggression." I opened the door wide and stepped aside. "Come in, you can see for yourself." They moved through the entryway, eyes skimming the room with quiet precision. I narrated facts as if reading a recipe, 66 years old, independent, healthy. Tonight had been a family discussion, nothing more. On the glass table, the folder with the notarized gift letter lay beside a neatly labeled timer app, still showing the last session's count. The refrigerator hummed, stocked and orderly. My medications sat in a row with the day's pills already taken, nothing for a welfare report to cling to. One officer checked a note on his device. Dispatch mentioned a possible guardianship concern, he said carefully. I handed him a printed call log and voicemail transcript, time-stamped caller unknown, where a voice referenced expedited guardianship for me. I read a single line aloud, then let the silence do the work. Paper beats rumor every time. A buzz from Travis's phone broke the quiet, a text from an HOA neighbor. "Everything okay?" We ignored it. I told the officers, if there are questions about my well-being, please contact me directly, not through third parties. They nodded, professionalism unshaken. I gave each a card, my attorney Marcia's number on the back with my own name. They completed their walkthrough and concluded the obvious: no evidence of neglect, no cause for action. "We'll log it," the senior officer said, handing me an incident number. We stood together on the porch as the neighborhood hum returned, the kind of Sunday quiet that swallows gossip whole. Later, back in my apartment, I returned the missed call. The elder law receptionist confirmed someone. A concerned relative, no name given, had inquired about emergency guardianship. She explained the consent requirements and documented the contact for their records. I thanked her, noted the time, and added the details to my growing file. Before midnight, I emailed Marcia, summary of the officer visit dispatch, wording the call log and the elder law notes. My final line to her and to myself was simple: I don't chase lies. I tagged them and let them walk into court on their own legs. I woke before sunrise, the apartment still smelling of last night's strong coffee. My notebook lay open on the counter, circles around each task from the welfare check aftermath incident number, officer names, elder law, receptionist note. 2 photocopy sets waited in neat piles, a flash drive tucked beside them for Marcia. Paper beats rumor, signatures beat volume, that mantra hummed under the soft click of the coffee maker. By 9 o'clock, Travis and I sat across from Ms. Patel and Mr. Grant in a glass-walled HR suite at his office campus. He presented his PTO request in an even tone, family boundary situation, nothing more. He offered the patrol incident number and a summary of the call. No accusations, no dramatics, just dates and details. HR listened, asked a few clarifying questions, and then Ms. Patel said the line I'd hoped for: "Your performance is strong. We support the time off and will document no retaliation." The room exhaled. My shoulders lowered a fraction. HR policy, not pity, was what we needed. I mentioned the edited dinner clip making its rounds. HR declined to view it. Company policy allowed action only if workplace impact existed. We agreed on one point of contact for any inquiry and a single sentence Travis would use if asked. "Family matters are under counsel." He left with a PTO confirmation in writing a thin sheet of paper that carried far more weight than any online comment. At the county courthouse annex that afternoon, Marcia and I spread a careful stack across the clerk's counter, the police log noting no concerns, Linda's original photo, the neighbor's screenshot, HR's documentation, and the call log from the elder law office. Together, we drafted and filed a temporary no-contact order. The language was crisp: no third-party welfare checks, no social slander aimed at employment, no uninvited approach to home or work. The clerk stamped the packet, each thud another lock clicking into place. As we left the courthouse, my phone vibrated with a family group call, Darley's sister among the names. I let it ring out. Later, the voicemail played back unsolicited claims about my mental decline and a plan to visit my HOA. Perfect evidence. I exported the recording with its timestamp. Sometimes silence gathers the best proof. Before evening, I called the patrol supervisor to confirm the no-contact filing and to ensure last night's no concerns note was accessible in their system. He acknowledged it and added a flag to avoid redundant welfare calls unless new facts appeared. Procedure over drama, exactly right. Back home, I installed a simple smart lock schedule and adjusted the porch camera settings. No flourish, just quiet authority. A neutral delivery notice with the process server's number went up beside the doorbell, formal, unmistakable, unthreatening. Tomorrow's list waited in my notebook, meet the HOA president with papers, finalize the evidence index for the hearing, then dinner with my son. No screens, just food. I do not chase storms. I build roofs and keep living. The HOA office smelled faintly of lavender and copier toner when I walked in at 10 sharp. 2 chairs sat opposite a bulletin board lined with neatly pinned notices. Mrs. Alvarez, the HOA president, welcomed me with a nod while Secretary John set a laptop on the counter. Weariness lingered from the past days, but I steadied my voice and explained why I was there to document the rumor cascade the misuse of a welfare check and to request a factual correction for the neighborhood record. I laid each piece of evidence across the table, like measured cards. The patrol incident number with its no concerns. Note a concise deed summary, confirming my ownership and guest status, and Linda's time-stamped photo that caught the e-staff card in plain view. Ms. Alvarez scanned the documents carefully while John typed the minutes. I'd like a board memo confined to facts. Only I said no unnecessary names beyond what's already public. They both nodded, understanding the stakes without needing a lecture. We turned to the HOA bylaws, specifically the clause about disturbance and harassment via third-party calls. John read aloud the section that discouraged weaponizing welfare checks. The quiet in the room carried a shared recognition rules, existed for a reason, and we were here to use them, not stretch them. Ms. Alvarez began drafting a bulletin on the spot. The memo confirmed that police had found no issues at my address and warned against weaponizing welfare checks. It closed with a reminder to approach neighbors or the HOA directly before escalating concerns. She read it back to me, calm, factual, and final. I nodded once. That was enough. A spike of quiet satisfaction replaced the fatigue in my chest. Over lunch, I forwarded the draft to Marcia, my attorney. Her reply arrived within minutes. Good. Now we press the source of the clip. She attached a template for a legal metadata preservation request and outline to demand original file data, including upload IP and device information. Back at my kitchen table, I filled out the platform's emergency preservation ticket. Using Marcia's letterhead, I listed the file #N code, time original capture EXIF, if mobile edit timeline, and account login IPs at upload. I cited the pending order and attached the HOA memo as supporting context. An automated acknowledgement landed in my inbox seconds later with a neat case number. Another door quietly locked behind me. By early evening, I met Travis at a strip mall cafe. 2 mugs, no phones. I told him the HOA memo was being sent to all residents. "Thank you for keeping this boring," he said, a wry smile flickering. I laughed softly. Boring saves jobs. We sipped in comfortable silence. Later that night, a group text pinged from a relative. "We're sorry if you felt hurt," it read, an apology wrapped in conditional words. The attached screenshot of Darley's context post contained a visible draft overlay timestamp, a telltale sign of prior editing. I exported the thread, another quiet gift of evidence. At my own kitchen table, I logged the day's progress, HOA memo, dispatch, platform ticket filed, group text, capture saved. I slid the updates into my evidence index under community corrections and digital provenance, each folder ready for whatever came next. By dusk, the neighborhood had facts, the platform had a clock, and I had exactly what I needed for the next door to open. At 8:07 that morning, the email landed. The subject line carried the case number I'd been waiting for. The platform confirmed preservation was active, and then the sentence that mattered most appeared in black and white. The uploader's device was an iPhone, and the IP address traced to Darley's sister's service account. The timestamp aligned neatly with the welfare check window 2 nights before. I sat still, my coffee cooling, and starred the message. I forwarded it to Marcia with a single line of my own: "The path is straight now." Cold satisfaction settled where tension had been. I pulled my evidence index back onto the table. The linkage was clear, S19 to S21, and I added the new case number alongside hash values and a brief note marking chain of custody for the original URL. Then I printed a slim packet, careful to keep the first page a high-level summary, dates, numbers, references, nothing that needed a law degree. These summaries would steady the HOA, HR, and any patrol supervisor who came looking for clarity. By early afternoon, I was at Linda's kitchen table. She set her phone down and pulled up the original photo, the one she'd snapped at dinner, without realizing what it captured. Its XIF data was intact, unaltered. "You can use it," she said. We drafted a sworn statement, the date, the time, her vantage point, and a single plain sentence about what she saw and what she did not see. No distress. No raised voices, only calm conversation. Then we drove to a shipping store where a notary stamped her affidavit. I paid the fee, and afterward I handed her a bag of groceries, not favors. Protection, I reminded myself, was not a performance. It was gratitude made useful. Back at my desk, I emailed the HOA board a short update case number, only no names. I noted that a neighbor statement had been notarized. Within the hour, Ms. Alvarez replied, "All acknowledged. Board file updated. Thank you for facts." That line was enough. Facts carried weight. Gratitude carried tone. Later in the afternoon, I took a call with Ms. Patel from HR. She kept it concise, Travis's performance remained unaffected, and she was issuing a memo stating, "So, any workplace slander," she warned, "would be documented and escalated." Relief washed through me, not because of victory, but because of clarity. She confirmed his PTO dates and reminded us of the single point of contact policy. "Thank you for keeping this boring," I said, echoing my son's words from the night before. She laughed softly. Boring was safe ground in an office. At lunch, Travis and I reviewed our script. If colleagues pressed, he'd answer, "It's a family matter under counsel. Thank you for understanding." No screenshots, no explanations. He nodded shoulders a little lighter. Protective warmth filled me, the kind only a mother can feel when she sees her child steadying his own footing. By late afternoon, I packaged the updated packet for Marcia, the platform's device IP identification, Linda's notarized affidavit, the HR memo, and the HOA acknowledgement. I dropped it with a courier subject line in my email, ready for hearing, scheduling, and service. At dusk, I adjusted the porch light to a warm glow. Warm for family, cool for facts that remained my motif. I stood on the porch and rehearsed one sentence aloud. I chose not to humiliate anyone in public. I chose paper. That would be enough when the time came. By night, every page had a place, and all that remained was whether a human voice could do what paper had already done. At 9:12 a.m., the county docket posted our case. 10 minutes later, my phone lit with a text from a relative. "Let's talk before court." I declined, saved the message for the record, and zipped my folio. Today was for paper and boundaries, not hallway bargains. Marcia met me at the courthouse entrance, her calm as steady as the morning light. We spread the packet across a small conference table. The patrol no concerns, record the no contact petition, the voicemail of whispered accusations, the HOA memo, the platform preservation letter with device and IP, the group text thread with its draft overlay, Linda's notarized affidavit, and the HR memo that had kept my son's workplace clean. I practiced the single sentence I intended to speak. I sought safety and truth without humiliating anyone. Inside the hearing room, the air carried the hush of unspoken stakes. The judge confirmed our identities and called appearances for counsel. Marcia moved through the timeline like a well-cut path. I answered 3 questions under oath, voice even. When opposing counsel attempted to introduce the edited clip as context, the judge stopped them cold, citing our preservation letter and the platform's case number. One by one, the documents entered the record patrol log, HOA memo, HR memo, Linda's affidavit with intact EXIF, and the platform's response naming the exact device and IP address of the uploader. Silence settled as the judge concluded that the behavior qualified as harassment by third party and digital fabrication. The ruling followed with crisp authority a 1-year no-contact order with explicit prohibitions: no welfare check weaponization, no workplace interference, no physical approach to my home or my son's job. The judge mandated a public retraction on the same platform pinned for 90 days, the defamatory clip, and all mirrors removed, and proof of deletion submitted. Court costs were assigned to the opposing party. Then, almost gently, the judge added, "You chose documentation over spectacle." I met her eyes and gave a single nod. In the hallway, Darlie's sister stepped forward, but the bailiff intercepted, reminding her the order was effective immediately. Opposing counsel asked Marcia about a stipulated template to speed compliance. We agreed a precise retraction within 72 hours, pinned text acknowledging fabrication, and a no harassment clause extended to the wider family. The clerk noted the stipulation and filed it before noon. I initialed each page without fanfare. Back home, confirmation pings arrived like quiet bells. The platform verified that the clip was removed and the retraction text queued for public posting. Ms. Alvarez from the HOA emailed board file closed. "Thank you for handling this with restraint. I forwarded everything to Marcia, screenshots attached, and logged the compliance clock in my evidence index." That evening, Travis joined me for stew at my kitchen table. No phones, just the soft clink of spoons. "Thanks for keeping it boring and brave," he said. I smiled. Boundaries make room for love to breathe. We agreed that holidays would rotate. Dinners would stay small and no one would ever again weaponize family ties. Later on the balcony, Plano's lights looked ordinary and safe. A breeze moved through the railings as I thought I didn't win a fight. I kept a promise to myself: paper patience and a door left open for the worthy.